Hey everybody, welcome to another week with Fishing Wellness with Dr. B. Whether you're a fishing and outdoor enthusiast or someone who just enjoys health and wellness itself, this is for you. So this week, I am down in Georgia. So although the whole country's kind of facing a big heat wave right now, we always get a lot of really hot days, sometimes triple digits, or if it's not triple digits, then it'll feel pretty close to it outside. And when you add in the humidity as well, it's always a challenge in being out on the water. And a lot of times we don't think about how much we're consuming fluid wise from a hydration standpoint and what impact that may have on our fishing itself. So what a lot of us fail to recognize or realize is with fluid consumption, when we begin to lose fluid in our body and we're not replacing that, that ultimately impacts our cognitive ability. The more we lose and not replenishing properly, the more it's going to impact us. So we think about that during the summer. We're fishing and everything. We're out, fishing docks, soft plastics, whatever it may be. A lot of times those bites are very subtle. I know for me, a lot of times in some of the lakes that I fish, it'll literally be fishing a dock, and then all of a sudden you're having to stay so focused on your line that you'll see the line like move an inch, and that's really it. And if you don't pick up on that, then you've lost that bite, you've lost that fish. And so we're constantly having to stay focused on that throughout the day. So hydration actually plays a big part in that, and making sure that we are taking the necessary precautions we need, not only from our overall health standpoint, but also just for performance out on the water as well. So this week we're going to talk about just hydration while we're out there, making sure we're staying properly hydrated and everything. So I did a little additional research on this just outside of my background itself in health and human performance. I kind of looked at what else is out there specifically for, or is there any information about just anglers and fishing and so forth. So if we think about we're in the sun, we typically are going to lose. Now again, all of us are going to sweat differently, but on average, the average person is going to lose anywhere from 1 to 2 liters of fluid per hour. Okay, so that's 34 to 68 ounces of fluid per hour. Now, if we think about it, do we really drink enough fluids like every hour when we're out there fishing on the water? No, I know I don't. I'm guilty of it. Okay, I make a mistake of not drinking enough sometimes. So when we get to that point, when we get to the point of feeling thirsty, a lot of times like we're thirsty, a dry throat or whatever, like, oh yeah, get some water. Well, you're actually already to the point of going down the path of dehydration. And there's really not a quick fix for that. Sure, we may throw something on our throat to kind of wet it, try to think it's going to be a quick fix, but it's not. So that 1 to 2 liters, if we already feel thirsty, then we've basically lost 1 to 2% of our total body weight. Okay, which in order to maintain that, to sustain it so that it doesn't impact us long term, whether it's in a negative aspect or cognitively, however, to stay in focus when we're out fishing, that means we need to replace that fluid, 8 to 12 ounces of fluid, every 15 to 20 minutes. Okay, let's see here. Let's think about this for a minute. If you're like me, I was like, yeah, maybe first thing in the morning based on the lake that you're at or that you're fishing on, you may be like running and gunning real quick from lake, go to a spot, fish it for 10 minutes, take off and go to the next spot, fish it for 10 minutes, if that. But once that top water bite is done, you're kind of sitting there grinding, soft plastic, slow moving, especially in the heat of the sun, hot days, middle of the day, all those type things. So how often are you going to stop and step down the boat to the cooler, grab a drink, and then step back up on the deck? Okay, not very much. So it's making sure that if we're not going to do that, although again, that's the ideal way, but if we're not going to do that, then we need to turn around and make sure that every time we move, we're drinking that water, we're consuming that proper fluid before we take off and go to the next spot. Okay, so again, we're going to lose 1 to 2% of our total body weight once we feel thirsty. We're actually losing about 1 to 2 liters per hour, okay, while we're out there. So, gotta drink, consume those fluids, ideally every 15 to 20 minutes. Now, what do those fluids look like? Okay, are we looking at just water? Sure, water's probably the best, but when we sweat, we also sweat out other minerals. Okay, we'll have salt come out, we'll have potassium and things like that we're using, magnesium, all those other minerals that are sweat. The body's utilizing those also to help function as well. But salt is the big one that will sweat out if we get to a certain extent, a certain point on the sweat as well. So we got to make sure that we are replacing with electrolytes also. So water is ideal. That's the first step. And the second step is electrolytes. Now, I say electrolytes. Some people will automatically go to the thought process of like, okay, I need a Gatorade or something with like a high sugar content in it. No, that's not what I'm saying. In fact, that's not the ideal thing to do. Okay, you want to consume that 16 ounces of water electrolyte for every pound of weight loss. Well, we're not going to measure ourselves weight while we're out there on the water, but we want to look at those drinks that have, if we're not going to do water, we want to look at those beverages that have the right balance of potassium and sodium are the two primary things that we need to make sure we have in it. Okay. Now, some people will do a soda because they'll like the flavor of a soda and they think that will work. And it kind of helps to quench the thirst a little bit when you get that flavor. But did you know that with sodas, the sugar and the caffeine in it actually causes more of a negative effect? Okay, so that caffeine and sugar content in a soda drink actually impacts the absorption of the water into the body. So what happens is that sugar that's in that drink kind of carries along throughout the body, taking the water with it versus it being absorbed into the muscles. So what happens is you actually turn around and excrete a lot of that back out. So you may find yourself like, okay, I'm going to drink a Coke right now, and then 30 minutes later, yeah, sure, I'm thirsty from being out in the sun, but that sugar and the caffeine has caused where I've got to turn around and excrete that back out. So what I thought I was going to be absorbing to benefit my body is actually going right back out when I go to the bathroom. Okay, so caffeine and soda and sugar combined can increase that. The other thing with extreme high heat and those type of conditions, caffeine, although it's already a stimulant, high heat is already causing your heart rate to work at a higher level. So when you add caffeine to that, it's only increasing that heart rate another notch. So that's what we want to try to stay away from when we're out on the water in the summertime, heat, all that type of stuff. Stay away from the sugar and caffeine. Focus on that water or electrolyte balance. Okay. Again, the sports drinks, good. Okay, like the Gatorade and Powerades and so forth, but they do have a high sugar content. Yeah, they'll also have some potassium in them and stuff like that, but they're high sugar, which can turn around and spike your overall sugar levels or glucose levels, as we like to call it. And then if you're someone who is a pre-diabetic or a diabetic, that can have a whole nother impact on you. So really be mindful of those types of drinks. Focus on the drinks. Really look at the labels. Okay, what is the sodium content? What is the potassium content? Those are the two primary things that you want to make sure you have in it. Okay, you want ultimately like a sodium to potassium of like a 2-to-1 or 3-to-1 ratio is what you want to make sure you have. Okay, I recently tried, and I have no connection to this whatsoever. This is just something that I was like, you know what, I want to give this a try. Last tournament I had, I was up in North Georgia up on Lake Chattooga. First time I'd ever been there. And on Friday and Saturday, really hot, hovering upper 80, right around 90 degrees, if I remember correctly, on both days. So I went by the store, and instead of doing like the bottle Gatorade or Gatorade Zero or Powerade Zero, whatever it was, I got some of these packets of Propel. Okay, and there's 8 packets in each one. So it's real easy because I'm always going to have water. Water is the primary thing that I drink. But I can literally just take one of these little packets like this and just dump it in there. Okay, these little packets have 260 milligrams of sodium and 80 milligrams of potassium, and then several different B vitamins. Which B vitamins, if you know it all, also are like another energy source, if you will, from a vitamin perspective. You can also do, I'll look to see kind of like what's the industry itself, the ones that's got the highest percentage, if you will. And if you're an LMNT fan, that's got 1,000 milligrams of sodium and 200 milligrams of potassium and 0 sugar. It's got a sugar additive or sugar substitute, which is stevia, which is a natural one. That's the sweetener for it. But that's really no impact like what you have from like a Gatorade or Powerade. So the Propel one, again, that was the one that I like the flavor of it, a lot of different ones. Plus, if you look at things, it's, anywhere from $7 to $8 or more sometimes, depending on whether you could buy a Powerade or a Gatorade in an 8-pack. I got this for like I think it was $5 and some change that I bought this for 8 of them. So there's the same thing. So it comes out a little bit better from a cost perspective as well. But it's easy. I don't have to worry about that added weight. Also in the boat with other bottles, I got my regular water bottles in there, and I just add one of these little packets to it. Okay, so that's another thing that we can do, or that you can do to help from a hydration standpoint. Remember, if you're already thirsty, you're already to the point of dehydration or getting to be dehydrated. One thing that you can always do, you've probably heard this before, is when you're out on the water or before you launch for the day, pay attention to the color of your urine, actually. The darker it is, the more dehydrated you are. Okay, so ultimately you want that to be as clear as possible. But if you find yourself getting, it's got a yellow or a really dark yellow, orangish color, then we're getting really dehydrated. You need to make sure that you're consuming those fluids, especially the fluids with the electrolytes in them. If you get to a point to where it's an extremely dark yellow, orange, almost like a brownish color, think about, believe it or not, it's so dark it's almost the color of Coca-Cola. Okay, when you get to that point, you're basically to the point of like, okay, we may have a medical emergency here. Okay, so be mindful about how dark the color of your urine is. You want it as clear as possible or as close to clear. And I'll admit it, like you go out there during the summer and you're fishing, you can sit there and drink all the fluids you want. Are you going to get it clear? No, you're going to have some color to it. You're going to be constantly battling it throughout the day. Okay, that's a reality. I understand that. But what you can do to minimize your risk of that or the impact of it is really think about consuming your fluids early on. Okay, you know you're going to be out there for a day that's really hot on the water. You know you're going to have a lot of fluid loss. Drink those fluids early before you get out there. In college, in college when I was growing up, I ran cross country in college, did a lot of road races and things like that, half marathons, all those types of things. As a distance runner, well, distance running, we eat a lot of carbohydrates, especially based on the distance of the race, the night before and maybe 2 nights before. Okay, we would stock up on those carbohydrates from an energy perspective to help us when it came time for the race itself. Think about the same thing with your fluid intake when you're going to be spending a hot day on the water, especially multiple hot days on the water. If you're going for a tournament, you're going to practice on Friday, you're going to have hot weather on Friday, and then the tournament day on Saturday. You need to make sure you're really packing down those fluids. Okay, is it really beneficial on those practice days for you to stay out there until 4 and 5 o'clock in the afternoon? Are you really finding something new that's going to help you on Saturday? Maybe in some cases you are, but in grand scheme of things, if you will, if you're not healthy enough the next day, it's not going to matter what you find at 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So come off the water, get into a cool area, drink the fluids that you need to replenish and get yourself stored up for the next day. So hope that's some beneficial, just some general tips. Again, from a hydration standpoint, stay away from the sodas, the caffeine. If you need to do the caffeine at all in the morning, if you're a person who's a regular coffee drinker, try to do what you can to minimize that, how much you consume. That can also increase your output as well. So have a cup. Okay, if you can get away with just one, then just do 1 versus 2. Okay, do those types of things. And then focus more on the water and the electrolytes. Stay away from the soda and the high sugar drinks and caffeine. Focus more on the potassium and the sodium content that's in your beverages that you're going to drink when you go out there in the water. Remember, you're going to lose 1 to 2 liters of fluid per hour while you're out there. Okay, so essentially, once you start to feel thirsty, you're already 1 to 2% of your total body weight's lost. So you got to stay on top of that to help you avoid any type of health issues and also help you stay focused on the fish. So thank you very much for listening. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. It's kind of new. I know I've been slow kind of getting things out there, but new to get this going. And so appreciate any feedback you may have. And have a great time on the water. Be safe, and we will see you next time.